All right. Welcome to the first podcast episode of Nootralize with the newcomers, Johan and Max.
Thank you.
Please introduce yourselves.
You go ahead.
I should start then. Okay. So my name is Johan. I come from the town of Piteå, and currently I'm employed at Netlight, working as an IT consultant
Sweden, right?
in Sweden.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. You want to hear more, or should we?
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell me something about yourself.
Okay. So as I said, I'm currently working as an IT consultant. So that's basically what I do during the day. And otherwise, I try to, like in my spare time, I try to optimize my living, both through training, sleeping, nutrition, and lately also through supplements or nootropics. So yeah, that's basically me right now at this instance.
I think we'll definitely get back to that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'll go. Yeah, okay. My name is Maximilian, and my last name is Paju. And I also come from the north. I'm from Umeå, which is in the north of Sweden. And yeah, I think I spent a lot of time also like trying to figure out how to live a healthy life, basically. I feel good, and I haven't always been like pursuing that. I think it happened kind of recently, like half a year ago or something, and I think maybe through that I met you guys, because I didn't know any one of you before.
Right.
Before like 6 months ago or something.
Right.
So that's pretty cool. How
Yeah.
we got together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like pretty much exactly when we met, like 6 months ago.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So it must have been like exactly when we met. Must have been the same surge in interest in this topic, right?
Yeah, I mean definitely you've sparked my interest,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess sometime before that I started realizing that like things I do has an impact on my life. Yeah, I don't
Right.
know how stupid that sounds,
Right.
but that's. I mean, I started meditating, and I think Johan also sparked my motivation to keep doing that.
Mm.
I remember when we met that you really sparked my interest, like keep pushing with the meditation.
Mm.
And but before that, I quit alcohol these 2 years, so that's one thing
Mm.
in that like turn of events to live more healthy.
Right. Cool. And I am David. I've been running this podcast for 2 episodes before, and the blog of Nootralize as well for a couple of months. And I've been into biohacking and self-optimization for a couple of years now, and been reading a lot of books, and currently I'm learning a lot on the topic of biohacking and its subfields such as genetics and fields such as nutrition and nutrigenomics. So I have either been into these topics for all of my life. I've also been in states in which I, for one thing, consumed alcohol, but also just really didn't have a purpose in life and didn't find my day-to-day experience meaningful. But that is something that I feel like has turned around. And I don't attribute all of that to biohacking. But I do believe that biohacking does have definite potential to help people, and especially if you see biohacking as its broadest definition, which would be to engineer your life, essentially. So, yeah, go ahead.
So, what do you know, like, that one point where you started realizing that you can't keep living the way you did and you needed to change things?
Right. So I was quite addicted to gaming, and
Okay.
PlayStation, FIFA, yeah. So that led to a lot of anxiousness, essentially, because I didn't feel well at all. So the depression sparked anxiousness for how life would turn out, essentially. So I had this strong feeling that I couldn't keep living like this. And I'd say that it was gradual. So I didn't have like one moment that turned me into who I am today. But the moment at which I quit playing PlayStation was definitely a big moment in my life, which has changed my life forever.
Could you just elaborate a bit on like what was your everyday life back then? How when you say addiction, I think that people could have a like different interpretation of that. Could you just elaborate a bit
Yeah.
on what you mean by addiction?
Right. So my understanding of the term addiction is that you're engaging in a behavior, but you can't stop doing it, even if you think, upon closer consideration of your behavior, that it is not good for you and for your long-term goals.
So that is the technical definition to your understanding. But
Right.
I'm a bit more curious about like what was the day to day looking like for you back then?
Yeah.
And then maybe we can contrast it with today.
Yeah. So my day-to-day back then was waking up with an alarm, or by my parents, as my age was around 15, at 7 o'clock maybe, to go to school. And that was way too little sleep for me. I didn't have enough time to sleep, I thought, because I wanted to stay up playing PlayStation with my friends. And
Of course.
yeah, of course. And then I had to wake up to go to school, so that resulted in sleep deprivation over time. And
I think there's a lot of people to relate to this as well.
Amen.
Gaming in
Right.
that age. I
Yeah.
remember Dota.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
uh,
And World of Warcraft.
and World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we have similar experience. But sorry, continue.
Yeah, so after I woke up, I would have had breakfast, which was what I enjoyed eating at the time, and not considering at all what the quality of the foods were. So that probably contributed a lot to my depression, essentially, not feeling well.
And what was it? What did you enjoy?
Well, that would have been some sugar-filled cornflakes or something. Yeah, and maybe some Oh Boy, which has a lot of sugar too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a Swedish chocolate drink. Yeah.
I think it may be consumed internationally, but I'm not sure.
Scandinavian. Who
Maybe.
knows?
Yeah, it's a chocolate drink.
I
with,
don't think they have it in Norway though. There's something else there. I don't remember the name of it. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry.
Anyway, has a lot of sugar in it, and
Yeah.
that is
There, little
essentially-
David sat and consuming his
Yeah.
sugar-coated
Yeah.
and chocolate milk.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of sugar, a lot of saturated fats, which isn't necessarily bad, but if you don't consume adequate amounts and put it in relationship to the other fats that you're consuming, then the balance can get into a state where it is counterproductive for at least my current long-term goals, which is for one thing to feel well.
Mm.
So after my breakfast, I went to school, and unless I had a strong relationship with a person that I was interacting with, I was essentially always anxious to interact with that person. And I think there are various reasons for why that was the case, but it definitely screwed with my well-being, for sure. And it's in practice led to me not seeking out social interactions and meeting new people.
That is huge.
Yeah, it is a huge difference to move from there to where I am now to actually want to meet new people.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess that in school I didn't really learn all that efficiently either, because my mind was on other things and distracted and definitely not optimized.
Yeah, that's actually kind of crazy to think about, that I went through high school and computing science in university without ever thinking about like how am I performing in terms of learning and like cognitive efficiency, my cognitive function. Never thought about it.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that we should put that responsibility on the students either. I mean, I think it's pretty crazy that we don't get to learn that in school in general.
Yeah.
That should be like
basics.
A subject. Yeah. To maximize the yield, so to speak, of the studies.
Yeah. I think they're working on improving the process. Schools around the world.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Continuously.
Exactly. Iteratively.
Yeah.
But to continue on how my day was back then, after finishing a school day, I went home, tried to stay at my room playing FIFA for as long as possible until my parents told me, or rather, I didn't listen to them when they told me, but when they forced me not to continue. And then there were a couple of bad meals, and that's pretty much my day.
What was the thought pattern when your parents kind of told you not to, and how did you feel back then towards them? And
right, I think I was very much in a conditioned state where I hadn't really thought much of my decisions and my acting and my behavior through. And I don't blame myself for that, because I hadn't been taught anything else, and I was a child essentially. But how I did behave was that I screamed back at them when they told me more and more unhappily that you have to quit with what you're doing, because I continually misbehaved against them as well.
Right, so they pushed you a little bit into this. I mean, being parents, they wanted to push you in some direction that is is better than where you were going. So
right, they definitely didn't want me to play PlayStation all of the time as I wanted to.
But they were fine with the coated cereal, the sugar coated.
Yeah, I mean, they did have some impact in sparking my. Initially, it was fear for sugar. So for quite some time before I started to actually turn my life around big time, I had also started to implement some small changes in my life out of fear of, for example, getting fat.
I see, yeah.
Which I guess I have no idea how consciously they did it, but they did expose me to information of how unhealthy fat, unsaturated fats, and sugar are quite early.
Like that's like a whole topic talking about like how your parents, like seeing the change that you've made to your life and like their reactions to that. I feel like that's super interesting, but maybe not a topic of this specific episode.
Right.
I was thinking the same thing. Knowing you a bit now, David, it would be really interesting to. I can't even imagine you being like that, because that's not. I got to know you so recent, so it doesn't resonate at all with me and with the person that I know today. But so it would be fun to hear about your parents. How do you say, reaction perhaps towards this?
Yeah, we could talk about that in the future for sure. Yeah. I'd say that the reason why you're not seeing anything of this from me now is because I've suffered through what that entailed in terms of experienced suffering. I suffered a lot from my behaviors and how I felt. It was not a good feeling at all. I've probably never felt as bad as during the couple of days of withdrawal from PlayStation. Yeah.
Get dying.
Yeah. So like the main source of your suffering was your social anxiety. That's what I'm like drawing from this.
Why did you make that conclusion?
I guess because you were talking about like how you spent so much time with FIFA because maybe you were not comfortable with social interactions. So I don't know how many like people that you like friends. I don't know. Did you have an easy time making friends if you had so much social anxiety?
I did have a couple of long-term friends that I had always known for a long time, since I was a very young person.
But I guess like if you spend so much time with FIFA, maybe that's a sign of not being like comfortable in social interactions because
Also,
you're alone
and also that was the main thing that you brought up as a like negative feeling towards all the other things seem to be, or I'm not saying that you were conscious about your social anxiety, but rather like that was the thing that you brought up as a something negative,
right?
Emotional wise,
yeah.
Because also maybe I'm how do you say, projecting myself a bit onto you, because I think it's rather it's harder to notice how. I'm not really sure where I'm going with this. I think it's harder to notice how diet affects you rather than like social interactions that are unpleasant,
right.
Because I think it's so much more ingrained into us how we calibrate ourselves against others in the social interaction. So it's more designed to be felt, if you know what I mean.
For sure.
Yeah. So
yeah.
maybe
that's a very interesting insight, I think.
Yeah.
I've never put those two into relationship like that, like in contrast. Nice one. Yeah.
No, but it's super interesting to know about like what pushed me or Johan or you into like trying to find better ways of living. How do we put ourselves on a path which works long term?
Yeah.
Not
just pursuing like temporary pleasure.
Yeah. So now we have some background from David why you took these steps, or at least where you came from when you started this journey.
Right.
Should we maybe talk about like where we came from? Do you have a like what was your starting point that you feel?
I don't know. I mean, I kind of started to like when you realize that maybe whatever you were taught in school or by your parents or by society, when you realize that maybe those ideas are not the like perfect ideas, then I mean, I kind of discovered this when I realized that like pursuing money and career wouldn't bring me to a more happy place than where I was basically. So I guess that sparked my motivation to start looking for, okay, so what other like aspects of my life are not optimized or not taking me in a direction where I want to go. So I guess that like a couple of years ago I started to really think about my life and how can I design it in a way that I want it to be and not just have it happen to me, in a way. So but at that point I think I wasn't much interested in like what diet was doing or what. Well, yeah, I guess that too, but it wasn't my main interest to optimize my experience or my well-being at that point. It was other things that was interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned two numbers today in terms of time since you started becoming interested in self-improvement. 2 years and 6 months. Was 6 months ago some sort of breaking point after which you became much more interested?
Yeah, I guess at that point I started thinking more about my like day-to-day experience of my life, not just long-term goals of where I want to be and whatever. So that's when I quit alcohol and at least tried like or like realized that masturbation and porn isn't taking me anywhere, and really started thinking about my diet and meditation. Yeah. Like daily habits.
Yeah. I relate so much to that. Yeah, really. And I think that like you have two different ways looking at it. Like my motivation has always been to improve from very early on. My mom and dad moved a lot when I was young, so I always had to kind of acclimate or try to find ways to fit into new social context. And I wouldn't say that, I would say that it hasn't been easy, and thereby I felt like I have to do something for it to improve. Okay, first I was going to make the argument you can either run away from something or you can look to improve something, and that are two different approaches or two different motivations, but they tie into each other so tightly. I was going to say that I've always sought to improve myself to be able to reap the benefits of the improvement, but I guess it depends on how you view it. It could also be moving away from where I was. So, but yeah, I really relate to all those things. I've always been fascinated with, I can do this, and maybe some people have had these kind of benefits from doing this specific thing. Like I can just name drop a few things like Wim Hof, cold exposure, different exercising regimes or diets. I've been into CrossFit, tried different kinds of exercising, and also a lot of different diets like paleo or a lot of different stuff. So, but
Yeah, I mean, when you, as like it's the same in my experience. Like when you realize that there are alternatives, so to speak, then you also realize that oh shit, there's like a sea of things that people are talking about. Like you can try this, and actually that part can be kind of confusing. Like realizing that there's so much things, but like trying to figure out what like out of all these things, what's actually working. Did you have that experience?
Yeah.
Like as you said, you tried a lot of things.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that is also like the way to go with it. First, realizing that there are a shitload of things that you can do. Are we allowed to swear?
Sure, go ahead.
There's a lot of things to do, and the only way to really find what can benefit me the most is to try them. So yeah.
But I do think though that there are a lot of lessons to learn from what other people have found through their experiments.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Would you say that there is any one or two maybe experiments that you've done that have been the most significantly positive and not resulting in side effects in your life?
That would be meditation.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the big one.
I third that.
Yeah. It's fun that we all had this, like it's the go-to thing, like meditation, bam.
Yeah.
Right.
It really says something about it.
Yeah, it does. So simple and so accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
Talking about what we learn in school, I mean, that would be so beneficial.
Right.
Is learning to listen to your body.
Right.
Trying to optimize your state of mind for different activities, taking on the day or winding down in the evening.
Right.
That would be, I mean, why aren't we? Sorry, it's
Yeah,
almost tanging political now, so maybe we should stray away from that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is important though, and we can reason on the topic of it if we stay to the facts, I think, in a productive manner.
Yeah.
And what came to my mind on this topic is that my cousin, who's 4 years old, meditated in her school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what she said that she experienced was that she was flying in the clouds with a lot of other creatures.
Okay.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So what I take from that is that she probably got a lot more deep into the meditation session a lot faster. This is, of course, only one person, and I'm not saying that this is my complete opinion, because I'd have to consider a lot of other facts, but you could make the argument that children are very present from when they're born. And as we do get conditioned by our schools, people oftentimes get into these strong habits of addiction to things that in society may not be considered addictions, such as gaming, which is now more considered to be addiction than maybe 10 years ago. But I do think that children are probably very much more present than we are. And we can learn from them.
I think that could also be almost a topic by itself.
Yeah, for
like
sure.
kids and how we bring them up and what potential there is in like doing it right.
Right. And
Yeah, I mean, maybe we wouldn't even be sitting here if we were taught these things when we grew up, right?
Yeah.
probably not.
So just to maybe wrap this up before we start another subject, because I hear that we're kind of sniffing on other stuff right now. What do you say we call it this one? And because we've talked about our backgrounds
Right.
quite substantially and where we were before we started.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.